Evening, folks, and warm welcome once again to your favorite digital destination, Talk to Bhupen. You all know why we have created this format, simply because we want you, the viewer, to know exactly what is at the crux of the raging dispute, of the raging top story. No political hanging, no rhetoric, straightforward facts. Tonight, folks, we want to specifically look at what is going on in this country on a specific subject, and that is the subject of the big dragon. Many years back, I remember when George Fernandez was the defense minister, he once gave an interview to a publication, and George Fernandez straight away said that India's biggest threat does not come from Pakistan, it actually comes from China. And once again, we're seeing that what is happening is that it's the Chinese who appear to be creating more trouble for us. After all the bonhomie and all the hugging and all the meeting which took place in Tamil Nadu, this is where we are. Have the Chinese really entered Indian territory or not? Brigadier Datta is here with us, and Ambassador Prabhu Dayal will be with us in a short while from now. It's a no-brainer. The way this debate has been handled in large sections of the media, once again, has left a lot to be desired. We don't know what is the reality. Have the Chinese really entered the territory or not? At the crux of it is this question. Is the area till finger 4? And what is this finger 4 area? Brigadier Datta will hold fort on that in a moment from now. The debate is that in certain areas in Ladakh, around the line of actual control, are those areas which used to be with India, which used to be under patrolling of Indian forces, have those areas been taken over by the Chinese or not? Is this the Chinese premier's strategy to bring India on the negotiating table? Not all is well between India and China when it comes to certain trade negotiations, certain trade dialogues. Is this a pressure tactic? What is it that can happen between the two countries that we could once again go back to the pre-existing scenario, the pre-existing positions which existed around this area? So Brigadier Datta, let me straight away begin with you, sir, and let me welcome you on this program. What I want to understand from you, Brigadier Datta, if you could just unmute yourself, sir, is that where do you stand on this question? You know, there are two conflicting narratives which appear to be at play in the defense security establishment right now. There is one view that it's an overestimation of the fact. It's an overstating the fact that the Chinese have entered our territory. Did the Chinese really enter our territory or not, Brigadier Datta?
As per the LAC and as per the 1996 agreement, the sovereignty of the LAC is to be maintained. It is definitely a incursion on part of China that they have entered, say, about 1 to 3 kilometers in our territory. Since the LAC is so long and the terrain is so challenging and so difficult that constant vigil is not possible. So the dominance or the border patrols which are undertaken, then only you can establish that there has been an incursion. Chinese army has been undertaking all these kind of activities, and a force of, say, about 2,000 troops, which is as good as a brigade strength. It cannot be a local action. It has to be a deliberate action which has been decided strategically. And I am of the firm opinion that it is a deliberate move by the PLA with CPC giving its green signal that we must go and do some kind of arm twisting as far as India is concerned. And as far as incursions are concerned, the incursions have been taken place in past also. And it is not a new thing. But the form and manifestation and the magnitude is phenomenal this time. And they have, addressed a very strategical area, that is the, north of Pegangso. And since China is making a hydel project there, and India has made a protest, but China is coolly, keeping quiet on it. So it's a very strategic area, and the footprint of Chinese presence can have lot of implications as far as India is concerned in that in this Ladakh area.
No, but Brigadier Datta, I get your point. What I really want to be very clear about is this, and there's a reason why I'm saying this. The defense minister recently was quoted as having admitted initially that Chinese troops had entered eastern Ladakh area, and then there was a denial that was put out. I want to know, sir, in your estimation and in your conversation that you're having with the people who matter, is there consensus that indeed there has been transgression across the line of actual control by the Chinese troops?
Yes, definitely. Where is the doubt? I mean, there is no doubt about it. It is an incursion, and it is a fairly big incursion. If you see, say, about 2,000 troops which have entered almost 3 kilometers in your area, and it is not a small caboodle. It's a very big blob which can be seen electronically, digitally, and as well as physically. So by no stretch of imagination, it can be said, it cannot be said that, they have, the troops got waylaid, or they were not aware of the alignment. The alignments are aware, people are aware, both the armies are aware of it. And it is a deliberate act on part of China that they have selected a very important and a strategical finger 4 area.
So let's look at this finger 4 area that we're talking about, and we've prepared a map, and I want to look at this area a little more closely. Ambassador Dayal is joining us live as well. Ambassador Dayal, the feeling is, or I should say, the interpretation. Though facts cannot have interpretations, facts are facts. Now, either, sir, the Chinese have entered this area till finger 4, this map that we're looking at, and I must thank our friend Nitin Gokhale for this. A lot of this mapping and a lot of this information which is coming in is coming via a whole range of defense journalists and defense establishment experts. I've looked very closely at what is being stated by Lieutenant General Panag as well. What I understand from this, Ambassador Dayal, is that indeed the Chinese have come to an area which was not under Chinese control till, let's say, till a couple of months back. Would that be an accurate description of the situation?
Well, my information is quite the same. The border between India and China is 3,500 kilometers long. It is undemarcated, but the line of actual control has been something around which there has been an understanding. The two sides have not been crossing over. The Chinese have definitely crossed over into Indian territory. And according to my sources, they are in occupation of a good bit of territory. Why they're doing it? Of course, I think they are trying to pressurize India in a very deliberate manner, taking advantage of our preoccupation with the COVID crisis, which has been created by the Chinese themselves. They are trying to put pressure on us to go a little easy on the international efforts to scrutinize what actually took place in China and how much the Chinese are to blame for the coronavirus. They're trying to pressurize us not to scrutinize Chinese investments. They are trying to pressurize us in every manner possible not to get into a larger engagement with the United States, because as you know, the US has proposed that the G7 should be enlarged and should have Indian involvement. Now, the Chinese have taken this opportunity to pressurize us through their border encroachment. And they have been doing so with other countries too. Let me mention that the countries which surround China have felt their pressure in one way or the other in recent days and weeks. The Chinese have sunk a Vietnamese fishing boat. They have encroached on a Malaysian oil rig. They have ensnared Taiwan. They have ended, for all practical purposes, the semi-autonomous status of Hong Kong. So the Chinese are being very, very assertive. And I see what they are doing along the border as another indication of their throwing their weight to safeguard their own interests, their image. Of course, as
Okay.
our
Yeah.
side has said, we are engaged in
I
bilateral
agree.
military talks.
Ambassador,
Yes.
Ambassador Dayal, I think you're making a very important point, and I'm glad that at least there is clarity which is coming in by listening both to you as well as Brigadier Datta. So first things first, to those who are suggesting that we should forget about any Chinese transgression and that is some figment of imagination, that's not the case. Both Brigadier Datta and Ambassador Dayal making it absolutely clear. And to my mind, I mean, it beats me why the government should not be taking this issue head on and giving a straightforward clarification. But let's just stay with this map, and I'll bring in Brigadier Datta on this one. Because there is a reason why on the program today we put this map up. In 1962, if you look at the area around Sirijab area, in 1962, till 1962, the Indian side was holding the entire area till Sirijab. This was the area which was captured by the Chinese army in 1962. Consequently, the line of actual control which you see, the line of actual control, well, which is the status quo accepted border between the two countries, that line of control runs west from Finger 8 onto the Anila Pass. The PLA is located east of the Sirijab area. Now, till 2011, the reality was that our ITBP post was located well to the rear end of Hobrang. And the Chinese claim line is up to Finger 4. That's why this Finger 4 that we're talking about becomes so very important. In 2013-14, what we did was we developed a road to Finger 3 and Anila Pass. The ITBP established a new post near Finger 3 in 2013. That's the reason why this map that you look at and this discussion which is taking place about have the Chinese crossed this Finger 4 area, which have they moved into an area which was well under Indian occupation or under Indian control? Brigadier Datta, please explain to me, if the Chinese are now in control of this Finger 4 area, sir, what does it do to the rest of this area that we're looking at?
You see, Bhupendra, what happens is that this Pegangso is a very, very strategic area, and 2/3 of this lake is already with Chinese. So what they want to do is, like, if you see these features, Finger 1, Finger 2, they're like, our hand, they're like our knuckle. So that's why they have been named as Finger 1, Finger 2, Finger 3, Finger 4. The presence of Chinese have been, seen in Finger 4 and Finger 5 area, and the duel also took place. The physical duel between the two armies also took place in this area. Now, the alignment of the road which you are talking, that is the main worry which the Chinese or the PLA or the Chinese army is, they are more worried about it. Reasons, it is going to connect the logistic installations on our side, and it is also going to have an impact on the Karakoram highway also. If we are, if we are able to further our, the road network and the classification of the roads. So these two features are of very great importance, and the Chinese army also wants to dominate these features. So there is a, there is a, instrumentality of force which both the PLA and the Indian army, they both are, exercising, and the Indian army wants to push the troops back, but it is going to be an uphill task, because in mountains, if you have, done an incursion of almost 3 kilometers, it will be a very uphill task for our troops to, send them back. That only can be achieved through diplomatic discussions. On 6th, we are going to have a, Lieutenant General level talks, and I hope that we are able to resolve this issue. But should they fail, then the only answer is diplomatic, talks, and then only the respective armies can get back to the original positions. Because as of now, The PLA has moved out of stores. They have started making pillboxes, bunkers, and tentage and all, of course, is seen. So, which is a very, very serious, serious move by the PLA. And India has taken...
how do we deal with this, Ambassador? How do we deal with this situation, Ambassador? Because it is clear that the Chinese are in our territory. The Chinese have taken control of some strategic locations. Now, diplomatically, what are the options on the table for India to ensure that this situation is reversed in favor of India, sir?
Well, Bhupen, talks will be taking place both at the diplomatic and at the military levels. But we have to be very clear in our minds that we are not going to agree to any Chinese pressurization to accept positions as they are now. We have to insist on positions as they were till April 1st, 2020. The situation before 1st April 2020. It's going to be a very tough ask because the Chinese have encroached on our territory and are sitting there. It is difficult to push them back, but we should do whatever it takes. I understand that many reinforcements from the armed forces and the ITBP are already rushing in there. We have to take pressure with pressure. We have to answer pressure.
Are we in a position?
And this includes...
But Ambassador, are we in a position to put pressure on the Chinese, sir?
Well, the Chinese have been putting pressure on us. They have brought in reinforcements in terms of forces. We should be prepared to take in reinforcements too, which we are doing. Because it is not going to be possible to push back the Chinese only through diplomatic talks. They have encroached, they are sitting on our territory, and it will need pressure to push them out. And I think it is important that we should add to this pressure also economic pressure. There is a lot of concern in India about how the Chinese are swamping our market. We should put all sorts of pressure because these diplomatic talks are not going to reach a solution and solve the problem very quickly. They may be protracted in nature. So we should try and exert whatever pressure is possible on the Chinese. But the bottom line is, as our defense minister has said, that we will not compromise on a single square inch of our territory.
No, but sir, that's what I want to know.
Want us to accept
but Ambassador, that's what I want to know. Ambassador, that's what I want to know. You know, one thing for the political establishment to say, it's a politically correct thing to say. Nobody will say that we'll ever surrender anything. I take that point. But look at the reality. Look at how we are hoping that the Americans will come to our rescue. Look at what Donald Trump is saying, that, oh, Prime Minister Modi is not in a good mood about what's going on with China. Now, I want to know, between US, China, India, post the elections in America, do you suspect there to be an escalation maybe of this conflict which exists between India and China?
Well, I can't connect the escalation or a lack of it, absence of it, with the US elections. But this is one issue which we will have to resolve by using whatever means are at our disposal. They include military means and, of course, diplomatic means too. I said earlier that we must strengthen our friendships where possible. The G7, if it's being expanded and India is being invited to come in whatever capacity, as an observer, as a full member, or whatever, we should be prepared to go in. We should be happy to go in and create friendships. I'm happy that today, the first ever visual Indo-Australian summit took place between the Prime Ministers of India and Australia. This is a very important step because it signifies the fact that our relationship with other countries which are concerned about Chinese expansionism, our relationships are growing. I think we have to work alongside to strengthen relationships with countries like Vietnam, Philippines, mend our fences with Malaysia, do whatever is possible to join hands with all these countries who are facing Chinese pressure too. But to come back to the border situation, it is not going to be easy to push the Chinese back. No, it's not going to be easy. But there is
so we can't do it militarily.
If
So
we accept
I hear this.
then the Chinese will keep on pushing. There is no question whatsoever compromising on our territory.
Okay,
Bhupen.
so Brigadier Datta, final question then to you on that one, sir.
Yeah.
If the option is that we have to ensure that the Chinese go back, and if I hear this clearly that we can't push the Chinese back militarily, sir. I hear that within the army there was this whole 15-year perspective, of how to take on the Chinese, and various various notes were prepared by top officers. I don't know where those notes are, and I don't know what's happened to all those recommendations. But from what I gather is that when Mr. Jaishankar, the present foreign secretary, when he was serving in China as the ambassador, when he came to India, and when the UPA was in power, A.K. Antony was the defense minister, apparently Mr. Jaishankar told the people who matter in the defense establishment very clearly that the only way to deal with the Chinese is to arm, and arm. So I ask you, Brigadier Datta, what have we really done? Have we really responded to the Chinese threat perception or otherwise properly?
Well, Bhupendra, I agree with you that you see the first flags which were raised was by the then Defense Minister George Fernandez, when he said that we must look east also. And thereafter, the government has taken a lot of steps, like raising a mountain strike corps, placing some of our missile systems, which can have a lot of projections in Chinese areas, moving these Rafale squadrons in Hashimara. You see, we are not a 1962 army. Today, the army is very well prepared. Though, if we see from the, if you see the balance of about the various inventory and the various ordnances and various artifacts which the Chinese army has, we are still not able to match them. But it is not going to be a free run for the army. India is not a small pushover now. China also knows. You see, what China basically is looking at is, China wants a multipolar world, but a unipolar Asia. And China also knows that the next century cannot be Chinese Asian century without India's cooperation, or when India keeps, its cool. So China is not going to take on India head on. It is going to keep creating, such problems, and it is going to keep creating these pinpricks so that you remain busy. You understand that, yes, the supremacy of China is there, because China has got a very large footprint in Asia. Nothing moves in Asia without China's node. So the Cold War offsets or the effects which we are going to have, because we also know that though the Cold War is there between China and USA, but the relations between China and USA are deep-seated. Their trade is, it is.
What I hear when you clearly from both of you is this: that we should not be fooling ourselves. We may not be 1962 army, but at the same time, we're not in a position in which militarily speaking, we can push the Chinese back. We need to have some kind of diplomatic response. General, thank you so much for joining us on this special broadcast. Thanks so much for being absolutely clear and blunt in terms of the Chinese reality. That's it then. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Then you stay well and stay safe.